I am clearly the shortest person who has been here today. Thank you, everyone. I'm really excited to share with you a story about how we have utilized technology to advance digital construction management systems. So, I am sure that we have all looked at this and said, are we aligned that our top priority is digital transformation? And everyone says yes. And then says, what does that actually mean? And all of a sudden, everyone gets distracted. So I'm going to take a minute and just clarify what I mean by digital transformation. And it is the holy grail of getting this to work is when you actually have industry, which is business, government, and consumers all working together on the same data platforms. When that happens, you get the magic. All of the efficiencies that we dream of and that seem sci-fi become reality. We have done this in different arenas. I'm giving you an example here of the data exchange that happened with the banks. It took 20 to 30 years to get this all worked out, but we can actually get our money out from an ATM machine and all these things efficiently nowadays in all of our payment systems. So this can happen, and this is an example of what it looks like when it has gone viral and added a lot of value to our systems. So how do we do this in construction? So first, I want to give a little bit of a roadmap that has made a huge difference to me in my thinking about this. There are 6 stages to digitization that everyone should be aware of. And the first is where you just digitize the data. You actually just get it into digital format versus paper. Believe it or not, that takes an insane period of time. And people's expectations are all along that linear line. They think we should be making progress, and it seems and feels really slow. And that's called the deceptive phase. And the construction industry has largely been in this deceptive phase for the entire time that I have been working with it. So the key is how to get to the inflection point of when it is that you're actually going to hit disruption so that we can move up and experience those benefits. So what does life feel like in the deceptive phase? It feels like this. You're floating along and you are working really hard and it is absolutely miserable and goes on for a really, really insanely long period of time. Anyone in this room recognize what this feels like? Yeah, a few of us. So just keep moving because it is going to happen. What I'd like to talk to you about today is what makes this inflection point happen. How do we hit disruption? How do we know it's going to actually come so that we can start to really experience these benefits and stop talking about what they could be? And with that, I'd like to introduce Orange Button. It has been a catalyst in the process that we have implemented in the story I'm going to tell you today. And it's the Department of Energy's Orange Button initiative for the energy data standards, and it builds on the SEC data initiatives from XBRL and the financial world that has been out there and is starting to make the differences that we all have been looking for in construction. So, just to give a little background first, the Orange Button initiative was initiated by the Department of Energy. And if you get a chance to talk to Al Berkeley, he had a whole bunch to do with getting that conversation started. We have a working group that has been in place for over 7 years now with Blu Banyan, Sandia Labs, Sunspec, Raise Green, Wells Fargo, and many other private and public entities. So we have been working together to define these terms for 7 years. I have been told that any initiative takes 13 years, and I absolutely want to cut that time frame down, but it's been 7 years so far. So with this, I would like to talk about what I thought it would take to get to this digital transformation, and then what it actually took to get to digital transformation. So I thought defining common terms and having a common language amongst ourselves about what we were going to name everything and be very specific would have been enough. Like if we're talking the same language, that we would get there. And I was absolutely wrong. You also have to have common data sets. This is reference data that everyone can use across the entire system to know what they're talking about. The AHJ registry, which is the authorities having jurisdiction, the authorities that issue permits, having a common registry and common identifiers for these AHJs has been an absolute game changer so far and is going to continue to be as we move forward. And nobody needs to invent this information. It's the same information throughout the entire country. Everybody needs to, if you're using it, you got to collect it. Why can't we do all that labor and work it centrally and move forward from there? That is literally the question that we asked, and we said there's no good reason we shouldn't do this, and that's why we built this AHJ registry, and I'm going to tell you the story about how it's helped. We're going to be expanding this to the product registry, and if we can get it, the weather registry, and other elements for these common data sets. Final component to this is you have to have common tools that are using these. And we have Solar Success, Builder Success, all of these different software developers have bought in to use both the terms and the tools, which is when we start to build this exponential momentum to give us the distribution and the benefits that we're talking about. And nothing would be complete without security. Everything needs to be in the common security frameworks that you need. These are the ingredients to get disruption to actually happen at the consumer level. So if we're looking at any other place, these are the 4 elements. This is the meta pattern that you actually need to move any element of the construction industry forward into the disruptive phase. So I'm going to show you how this works with one pattern with the AHJ registry specifically, and how it's helping the solar industry, and how it can extend to construction in general. But the main takeaway for all of the super smart people in this room is that this is the meta pattern. You need to have all of these ingredients, or you're not going to get the breadth of adoption that you really want and need. So why do we need common terms? This is actually probably the argument that people understand the best, and there's some nuances to what common terms are that make the difference between success and failure that I would like to point out that I've learned along the way. So pretty much you need to have common terms so that you can exchange your data easily. That's the most obvious, immediate reason any API would do that. And it's really great you need to have that. It lowers the project costs because you're talking apples to apples. You know what you're talking about when you go through the entire cycle. And it enables you to build a foundation that will naturally extend the technology to the next level. So this is how you get agile development and make everything work. It's the core thesis that Blu Banyan has for driving down the soft cost in residential, commercial, and utility scale solar projects. So these are what the common terms are. This is how you use the orange button taxonomy. This is how you can find it. It's completely open source. You would start with the sender putting together their JSON object and into the right terms. They send it to somebody who's expecting an orange button, and they receive the software. So the taxonomy is defined at the top level, but then each sender and receiver puts together their data in this package and then receives it in this package. So it's just a labeling mechanism. It's like the wrapping that goes around everything. So common terms give you reusability, and that reusability is what gives you scalability, because we need to be able to set up a pattern that we're all expecting to see and use it over and over again. We need to be able to anticipate each other's moves and know that we're going to meet these basic requirements. And I would like to ask, how many people have lived in Excel hell? Yeah. I have heard this in every single panel that we've discussed today. So what it takes right now, if you want a piece of data, let's say that you're going to measure the energy AC generated on a specific day. And if you're going to live in Excel hell, you're going to get something for the city of Austin that will say on March March 17th even of 2022, and then you'll have whatever hour it was that it was during that day as a column label, and then you're going to have a header level label, and then you're going to have a number. Let's say it's 11.98. And if you're lucky, somewhere they might tell you if that's in megawatts or kilowatt hours, because you're not going to know. And you have to interpret not only that data element, but what the row level means and what the column label means, and often the tab name means in order to actually understand what that data element is, right? You're totally in Excel hell, and you know that Susie in Brownsville did it differently. So that is the current state of things and the current definition of Excel hell and why we can't coordinate our systems right now. XBRL, which is utilized by the SEC and reports all the financial data for every public company, every single one reports their data to the SEC and XBRL. And they came up with this concept that we call primitives. And you'll see them listed here, the decimals, end time, precision, start time, units, and value. So every single data field comes with the value it actually is. It comes with its own units. So you can see that it's megawatts, hours, or kilowatt hours. You know the start time and the end time. Do you think that matters with solar? What if we want to compare it to weather data? You need to know when you started and ended it and which time zone you were in, which is completely contained in this so that we can compare with each other. And then you've got the decimals or precision, one or the other. For the science guys, you can only have one or the other to get what you need. And this is how you completely define a term so that you know what you're sending the data over and you know what you're receiving data. Setting it up this way is actually simple when you're generating the data the first time, and then every single downstream vendor from there on has what they need. This is the key to making the common terms actually work. So please take a look at this. Don't underestimate how simple it looks. It's incredibly powerful. And with this, we have started to integrate application service providers. So Solar Success uses Orange Button, and you can see that our other partners have that Orange Button icon in there, and that it's getting adopted across every stage of the integrations that we need to run a solar project. And that's going to continue over the years as people become aware. So common terms helps all of this work. The next piece I want to show you is about a common data set. So let me tell you about a fragmented regulatory environment. There are over 40,000 AHJs in the United States. 18,000 of them issue permits for solar. There are 3,000 utilities. And we need to know how we're going to measure that. I'd like to offer this view of Houston. You need to know if you're in the city of Houston, Harris County, or the state of Texas. And before we had the AHJ registry, and we did this polygon math, where you could say, here's my address, which AHJ do I belong to? We do a polygon math match and tell you you belong in whichever AHJ is applied. Before that, we had to have humans with super duper brain power who had memorized all the craziness that is involved with Houston City. The circumference of this AHJ is larger than the circumference of the state of Texas. They had to know that in their own personality and life experience in order to attempt to assign the correct AHJ. How many people think that's error prone? Yeah, everybody. So this is what we worked with, and we used polygon math to fix it. So why does it matter that you get the right AHJ? It determines who you're going to send your permit to, which matters. But you'll also notice that the city of Houston, Harris County, and Texas, state of Texas, all have different electrical codes and fire code standards. So using the AHJ registry, all you have to know is the address, which you do know, and you can know which electrical code, fire code you need to be building to. It is an absolute game changer in the solar industry. It saves time, reduces errors, and lowers cost. Anybody have any questions that this would be useful for them? Right? It's totally obvious that this is great. By the way, it's available online. You can test it out yourself. And no one that we've shown this to has decided they didn't want to do it. We did do this with NREL because they wanted to use it for their solar app that I'm going to tell you about in just a second. So we did some testing. And we had 17,540 residential solar projects and that were manually assigned. Humans went in over the course of 5 years and assigned the AHJ manually, and we had 98.5% accuracy. And when we investigated the 257 misses, we found that they either had bad data, or in a few cases, that was like 20 of them, both the AHJ and the installer issued a permit for a residence that was not actually in their jurisdiction. Neither the AHJ or the installer knew that they had done it wrong, and the AHJ registry was right. So it makes a huge difference to have this common data set available. Imagine what we could do if we also had the products or we also had weather data, for instance, available to us. This is what Titan Solar, who is currently the #1 largest residential solar installer in the United States, and they automatically assigning the AHJs eliminates human error and streamlines our pre-installation process, allowing our teams to install solar systems quicker and achieve the end goal of a completed project and happy customer. The Holy Grail. Then we take it to the next level. We need to be building these common tools. So Solar App is a permitting tool that is being developed by the Department of Energy. And guess how they determine which AHJ they need to submit their permitting tool to? They use, they're using the AHJ registry to do 500,000 solar systems, and they're running all of that through and using the AHJ registry as that common data set to issue these permits. So the permits that they're issuing has got a 30% year uptick in the solar capacity that's getting issued each time, and we need to make it more streamlined so that we can issue these permits quickly. Since it's been launched in 2021, it saved over 3,000 hours of staff time, and it increased the number of projects likely to pass inspections and get completed on shorter timelines, because if there were problems, they addressed them earlier. And it's processed 17,000 permits over 13 jurisdictions, which is actually out of date. It's much higher than that this year. These were the initial results from using it. And a couple things I want to highlight is that the average permit review time was reduced to less than 1 day. So what takes 30 to 45 days to do manually is now done in hours. That is the benefit of having these common tools. And there was a lot of concern about submitting this electronically. Are you going to increase your inspection passage rates? Like, are people going to cheat and do it electronically if they're not looking at you eye to eye? And the answer was no, that you're just fine. So these were the initial results. Everything was good. And so what I want to show you and talk to you about is, as we're pulling these tools together, we're starting to use them, they're developing momentum now, we are hitting the inflection point where disruption is happening. And we are going to feel it tremendously. We're going to feel and see this momentum that we've been gaining all of this time period. So I wanted to share that with you. Does anybody just give me a show of hands? Does this sound like it's hopeful and that we could actually get there? Yeah, this is the formula. You have to have all of these pieces in there, and you can actually make this happen. So Orange Button is part of that. How do we extend this to construction in general? Everybody needs permits. It's not just solar. So this is the very next question that we're going to ask and answer. We've been looking at new home development, especially since the California mandate that says that all new homes have to have solar. And you'll see that we need to also build new homes faster and better for people. We have severely undersupplied on both coasts and in the middle of the US right now. So we've got the need for new homes in the US is surging. And with the creation of this, we need much more affordable housing units in the next 3 years to make this work. And it's growing $129.3 billion in 2022, and it grows at a 4.4% year-on-year average. So it's over these years, the last 5 years. So it's a growing industry. We need these same things, and we need it to pull in solar. But they've got legacy systems, data silos, all of the things that you know about in construction holding them back, as well as skilled labor shortages and supply chain. So we built Solar Success to help with this business management software. We've gotten 50% higher operational efficiency by having a single source of data for both project management and accounting. And over 50 companies, installers, are installing it, including the top 3 residential solar installers in the US. And 33% of the residential solar installed in the US is done by companies running Solar Success. So this innovation that has happened in solar, we are bringing that to Builder Success so that we can bring these similar efficiencies to the industry in general. Because we want to deploy more projects faster and more profitably, it includes an automatic integration with the AHJ registry so that everyone will have higher productivity, more bandwidth to do more projects sooner, better access to financing, because if you can reduce the risk, you can increase your throughput and get better terms, and then higher profits by lowering the soft costs for everybody. So this is what we are trying to bring with our digital technology and the formula that we found to help this digital transformation. And we want everyone to come join the fun and learn more about it. Thank you.